Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Marvel Spider-Man on PS4 is littered with Easter eggs and references. And since we here at New Rockstars are obsessed with all things Marvel related and digging up Easter eggs like they're fried crumbs out of a fast food bag, I'm gonna run through as many of these Easter eggs that we could find. And I should say spoiler warning since, some of these come up later in the game. But let's start out with the locations, all the Marvel landmarks that you can find by swinging around New York City, some missable, some not so much. It's not too hard to find Avengers Tower in the skyline. Spider-Man says he thinks the Avengers are away on the West Coast. You can also see the buildings for Damage Control, that's Tony Stark's cleanup organization, and Roxxon, the energy conglomerate. I also think I spotted the Rand Corporation building, that's a company of Danny Rand, Iron Fist. Down on the street level, you can find the Sanctum Sanctorum of Doctor Strange.
Cool window, but I always get the feeling something strange is going on in that place.
As well as the Wakandan Embassy of Black Panther and the embassy for the country Simcaria, that's the home of Silver Sable. You can also find Alias Investigations, that's the headquarters of Jessica Jones' private investigation company, and the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, that's the law firm from Daredevil, Fogwell's Gym, the gym that Matt Murdock's father trained at, Josie's Bar, the Hell's Kitchen dive that Matt Murdock hits up all the time, as well as the secret Bar with No Name. Other places you can visit include a statue of Lockjaw, that's that big old dog from the Inhumans show that no one watched. It's swapped in here for that bull statue in Wall Street. You can also visit Empire State University. Go Empires. It's the fictional alma mater of Peter Parker, and a lot of other people went there. There's also Clinton Mission Shelter from Daredevil. That's where his mother, Sister Maggie, works. You can also find the Heart Clinic. That's the home of the Spider-Man villain Cardiac. Chikara Dojo is mentioned in the Spider-Men side mission. That's the place where Colleen Wing trains. And there's also randomly the firehouse office of the Ghostbusters, along with a nearby graffiti mural of a ghost. And if you want to feel depressed, you can swing on over to the cemetery and pay your respects to Uncle Ben's grave. Okay, let's move on to the details that we found in the game's cutscenes. And again, spoiler warning since we're going to be getting to a lot of the story reveals here. Right away in the opening cutscene, there's a shot of Peter Parker's bedroom with lots of little details. You can see a stack of comic books, including Amazing Fantasy number 15. That was the very first appearance of the Spider-Man character in the Marvel Comics. And there's a lot of Daily Bugle headlines of some Spidey villains, and you can see a lot of post-it notes. One says, "Call TS back, read job offer," that's referring to Tony Stark. Another one says, "RR suit fabric ballistic?" I'm thinking RR could be referring to Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Later, after beating Wilson Fisk, Spider-Man makes a reference to the famous upside-down kiss from the first Spider-Man movie.
So, should we kiss now? Yeah, maybe later.
And then later, a lot of you noticed a possible Venom reference from Yuri.
You got a black and white suit?
This game also has its own Stan Lee cameo. It comes up in a later cutscene.
Love seeing you two together again. You always were my favorites.
And during the battle with Mr. Negative, when Spider-Man stops a subway train, we get this nod to the train scene in Spider-Man 2.
Totally worked last time.
And one final spoiler warning, after beating the game, there's a post-credit cutscene showing Norman Osborn and his son Harry, with a little tease for Venom. This appears to be hinting that Harry Osborn could return in the sequel to this game as Venom. Now, really, there are just a ton of Easter eggs that you can find by exploring everything in the game. So let's run through these details that the developers snuck in. Now, to me, the most interesting detail is this movie theater marquee that reads, "Maddie, will you marry me?" This was inserted by developers at the request of a Spider-Man fan planning to propose to his girlfriend, but by the time the game was released, the fan said, thanks, but that he and his girlfriend broke up and now she's with his brother. The developers have a patch planned to replace the proposal with a shout out to the guy's grandmother. Nice way to keep it in the family, bro. I'm just kidding. His grandmother introduced him to Spider-Man comics. It's a really sweet thing that I just ruined. Also, at the entrance to the Feast Center, there's a wall containing photos of the real-life developers of the game. There's also a poster for the services of Doc Murr and Turwals. Those are, of course, anagrams of Marvel lawyers Murdoch and Walters, aka Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. And when you see this, you can hear Peter's narration referencing his old high school bully, Flash Thompson.
Veteran homelessness is down, but still way too high. Good thing my buddy Flash Thompson's doing his best to fix that.
Elsewhere in this Feast Center, there's a mention of a crossword puzzle, and then you can actually find this crossword puzzle and zoom in on it, and it's a real solvable puzzle with Iron Man as one of the answers. There's also a few references to other games. One comes up on a side mission. It's a nod to Grand Theft Auto 4 characters, Nico and Roman Bellic.
All right, Roman's ready and we are running late. Let's go.
You can also find a storefront with the sign Tomb Raider, obviously a nod to Tomb Raider. And at one point you can hear a broadcast from J. Jonah Jameson declaring this.
Maniacs who shoot electricity out of their eyes, walking piles of sand, Nazis made of bees!
So walking piles of sand obviously refers to Sandman, but Nazis made of bees is actually a reference to a real but obscure villain named Swarm. He's a Nazi sympathizer whose entire body is composed of bees. Bees! Another fun detail, Spider-Man at one point makes a joke about people taking pictures of his 3 chest hairs through a hole in his suit. And then later, when Peter's undressed, if you zoom in on his chest, you can see precisely 3 chest hairs. And while we're talking about sexy Spider-Man Easter eggs, one of the greetings Spider-Man can give people on the street is finger guns. And of course, that's a reference to emo Peter Parker's cringy catcalls in Spider-Man 3. There are a couple Wilson Fisk details, his famous obliterator cane, as well as his cello, which he named after his wife, Vanessa. In Otto Octavius' lab, check out the notes on his whiteboards throughout the game to see his descent into the madness of Doc Ock, as well as some drawings of the Raft prison and notes about its weak points and guard rotation. We also learn that Otto gets support from AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. That's an arms dealer organization that shows up a lot in the Marvel comics. And there are also a number of Green Goblin references. Prototype Goblin grenades at Oscorp, a prototype glider can be seen at some point, and Mary Jane's visit to Norman Osborn's penthouse reveals a prototype Goblin helmet. Some people have spotted a code inside of it that actually refers to the first issue of Spider-Man comics that Green Goblin showed up. And looking around this penthouse, Norman also has a wall of certificates and distinctions, which includes an award from the Pym Foundation, signed by Hank Pym himself. Another detail, whenever rockets are fired at Spider-Man, if you go into photo mode and zoom in, you can see the developers printed on the side of the rocket shells, guaranteed to kill spiders. Also, if you stand outside the pizza restaurant, you can hear the pizza theme music from the Spider-Man 2 video game. And there's a cameo by shirtless Spider-Man, Greg Miller, at the costume party.
Hey, look at us, the Spider Bros. Check out my moves.
Now, yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that people are finding. There's some sightings of Spider-Man and Venom action figures inside buildings, and then like Electro referencing the Ultimate Spider-Man 2 game, and Peter making jokes referencing movies like RoboCop and Die Hard and Know What You Did Last Summer, but we don't got time for all that. Let's move on. In the game, you can also retrieve several backpacks that are webbed up around the city that contain various Spider-Man collectibles that are worth mentioning. Let's run through what we found. One of them contains a business card for Nelson and Murdoch. Another, a vial of sand that Spider-Man thinks could contain Sandman that he doesn't want to unleash. And then another, a vial of the Lizard's blood. Then there's this farewell card signed by Daily Bugle staff, including Eddie Brock, who I'm sure is very happy to see Peter leave. There's also a Spidey signal, as well as a pin for Spidey Squad. They're a YouTube channel known for lots of coverage leading up to the release of the game. Another item is this drawing by a kid for whom Spider-Man rescued a balloon, which is a nod to the lame side missions of the old Spider-Man 2 game where you had to rescue balloons for kids. There's gotta be better ways to spend your time. Another item is a piece of the helmet of Mysterio, while another contains a book called Work-Life Balance for Idiots. The author of that book is Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt. It's actually one of the aliases of Mysterio, aka Quentin Beck. Another backpack contains some Spider-Man suit arm webbing. That's the stuff from a very early design of Spider-Man's suit from the 60s. And lastly, another backpack in Central Park, there's a gaming device that looks a lot like a PlayStation Vita. Now, another big source of fun details comes from Spider-Man's social media feed, which you can access through the map screen. So let's run through some of this cool stuff that we found. One account appears to be John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut. I spotted another account called Gotta Phone Malone, probably a nod to Better Call Saul from Breaking Bad and his own show on AMC. There's another post by Monster Catcher Guy posting about Pokemon Go. And then there's a hashtag that everyone uses called Everybody Does Get One, which is a reference to a Family Guy joke.
Wow, thanks, Spider-Man.
Everybody gets one. Tell him, Peter.
Apparently everybody gets one.
Bingo.
So those are what I've found so far, and I'm sure we'll keep finding more. So comment down below with your favorite Easter egg, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Erik Voss, and subscribe to New Rockstars for these kinds of in-depth Easter egg breakdowns from all the crap that you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.